Welcome to Market Madness, the podcast from GiveMeSport for our second live deadline day special show. Market Madness is the ultimate football podcast for fans who want to go beyond the headlines and into the stories that shape the transfer market. You can watch the show on YouTube, Facebook, X, and also you can search on at GiveMeSport.com and at GiveMeSport as well, or listen on your podcast app of your choice. Links can be found in the show notes. For more information on any stories discussed today, head over to GiveMeSport's website. Now, I also want to thank Olivia for hosting our show earlier on today. Great job during lunchtime. Ben, how was it and how are you today?
Do you know what? There you are thanking her. And there we were joking on the last show that you non-attended because you were crying into your pillow because Arsenal haven't signed a striker this window.
Oh my gosh. There's still time, Ben. There is still time.
You never know. I mean, I'm just going to leave a slightly awkward silence there because I'm not convinced anyone's coming in to Arsenal between now and the window ending. But you know what? We got Dan Bardell, we got Fabrizio Romano, we've got Dean Jones. Maybe one of them will give you more hope than me.
Hopefully so. Like you said, that's a good point, actually. Like you said, we got Fabrizio coming on for the second time today on Market Madness. Like you said, Dan Bardell from Sky Sports. He's going to talk to us about Marcus Rashford and Aston Villa. Of course, you've got GiveMeSport senior editor, chief correspondent, Dean Jones. And yourself, Ben, you're going to be here giving us an update and talking to us about the transfers. Are you ready? I heard you've been up since the early crack of dawn.
I have indeed. I'm on the water, the coffee, the tea, any kind of liquid to keep me going with a little bit of caffeine or sugar or hydration in it. But just a few bits of breaking news that I want to bring you. We'll start actually with a little exclusive, which is I understand the Southampton goalkeeper, Gavin Bazunu, is off to Standard Liège on loan. So that's a little bit of breaking news. Tyrell Malacia and PSV is one to watch between now and the end of the window. A deal is very close there as well, Joel. You may remember about 24 hours ago, it looked like something would be agreed with Benfica. There was a player to club agreement, but not a club to club one. And then we are waiting for official confirmation that Ben Chilwell will join Crystal Palace. The medical's done, paperwork all being finalised. That one is going to be a straight loan. And a bit of breaking news from earlier, just to reiterate, and quite a big story as well this window. Joao Felix off to Milan on a loan. My understanding is there is no option to buy, but Chelsea are receiving close to 5 million in a loan fee and 100% of wage coverage as well. And for those of you that have been following us throughout the day, we've already spoken about Matthias Tell to Tottenham. Crazy story there. Fabrizio Romano will give all of the details. And Manchester City are going to get a midfielder as well. Nico Gonzalez has now completed the first part of his medical ahead of a move worth around 60 million euros. Manchester City haven't triggered the release clause of the Porto midfielder, but they've effectively matched it or close with more preferable payment terms. So Nico Gonzalez to Manchester City, completing an insane, spectacular, big spending window for Man City.
Unbelievable stuff. And I'll tell you what, I'm extremely jealous seeing all the other teams active. Hopefully, Ben, you're going to be saying some good stuff about my club really soon. And earlier on, it was just nothing but jokes. But anyway, let's get into it. This is Market Madness on GiveMeSport. Okay, so really quickly, Ben, what do you make of the transfer deadline day so far? You've been working on loads of stuff. We've got the Here We Goes coming on. Talk to me.
Yeah, we'll have Fabrizio Romano very shortly. I'm looking forward to hearing the perspective of Dan Bardell, particularly on the Marcus Rashford deal. But also, I'm sure you're chucking a question there on Ollie Watkins and what chances of a move to Arsenal in 2025. What I think we've seen is a proper deadline day. 12 months ago, almost nothing happened. The Premier League clubs collectively spent 112 million. Man City alone have surpassed that number. So we've seen a lot of Chelsea outgoings, including Joao Felix that I just mentioned. We've seen Man City complete their bingo card of the midfielder Nico Gonzalez, but of course, Victor Reis and also Abdulkadir Husanov as well, and Omar Marmoush, who started both the Man City games since making that move. And that feels like the big collective story of the window. Man City getting a revamp, for Pep Guardiola. Then away from that, I think Wolves have been very busy as well. And as I exclusively revealed a few hours ago, Mario Lemina is an outgoing for them to Galatasaray after a Saudi move fell through. And then at the other end of the table, we've seen Ipswich be relatively active throughout this window. Leicester and Southampton have struggled a little bit more. And I think West Ham have had a good January as well, Joel. Evan Ferguson joining on a loan deal from Brighton and Hove Albion, and James Ward-Prowse terminating his loan deal with Nottingham Forest and returning to West Ham. And both of those moves, I'm told, were driven very firmly by the new manager, Graham Potter.
Man, that's a lot of news right there, and I'm actually surprised with the Evan Ferguson deal, especially because a couple of years ago people were saying he could be going to United, but I guess he just wants to play at the moment, right?
Yeah, and I think it was a decision collectively. So at the beginning of the window with Evan Ferguson, it was all about, can he get fit? Then Brighton had to determine, were they prepared to sanction a sale and would there be any permanence to it? And at the end, I think we still have this Brighton belief that this is a player. This is someone that can rediscover his form from a few seasons ago. This was a player, let's not forget, 18 months ago was being touted as going to Arsenal or Chelsea for 80 million. So Brighton were very firm that unless anyone met their valuation, obviously it wasn't as high in this January, they were not going to sanction a permanent exit. And for Arsenal, their Premier League loan spots both full through Raheem Sterling and Neto. So they would have had to buy Evan Ferguson. They didn't want to go down that line. And I think some other suitors, Chelsea, for example, who have looked at Evan Ferguson before in the past, were also simply not prepared to put down the outlay necessary for permanence, even though if he was a little bit cheaper, maybe more suitors would have come forward. So then it was about finding the right solution for Brighton, who want the player back, for West Ham, who have got Nicholas Füllkrug and Mikel Antonio out, and for Evan Ferguson to get fit and hopefully start scoring some goals. So it's just a deal that suits all parties. And I think he'll be, if he stays fit, a big success at West Ham.
Completely agree. You know what? We're getting signs that the man himself, Sky Sports reporter Dan Bardell, is ready to come in the chat. Come in, Dan.
Evening, you both okay?
There you go.
Hey, Dan.
You good? Everyone hear me?
Dan, we can hear you well, and I have to say your camera quality is super clear red. It's like Sky Sports.
It's too good. At my age, you can't be having it this clear. I need to do something about that. It's too clear.
No, that's brilliant. Can I say, are you as busy as Ben is today? Would you say?
Yeah, quite a lot going on. You referenced January last year. I was sat in the Sky studio last year, and it was very hard work to try and talk about stuff that was happening because there simply was nothing going on in January last year. But this January has been the complete opposite. The stuff going on every day. Deadline day has been really busy as well. So it's been a really interesting and exciting window, and obviously for me as well, my team's been pretty active in it as well. So yeah, really good window so far.
Well, I wish I could say the same. There's only one place to start. I'm an Arsenal fan, just in case you didn't know.
No, I know.
There's only one place to start. Marcus Rashford. Bearing in mind, he was underperforming at Man United, who are, let's be honest, the bottom half of the table, right? There's no questions there. Is this good for Villa? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but it is a step up for Rashford in a lot of ways because he's going to go to Villa and he's going to play. He's going to be playing for a team that is pushing towards the top six and looking to qualify for the Champions League again. And most importantly, he's going to be playing in the Champions League again as well, because Villa, of course, have already qualified for the last 16. So I think it's a really intriguing move. I get that there'll be doubts around certain things. I think he did become a little bit of a scapegoat at Manchester United. I know there's off the pitch issues and there's been off the pitch problems, but I think a change of environment for Marcus Rashford, a kind of bunch of new teammates to try and impress a new team, a new manager. It was so weird seeing him in the Villa tracksuit, in the Villa shirts earlier today, because he's just synonymous with Manchester United. But I think both for Villa and for Marcus Rashford himself, I think it's a good deal. And I actually think for Manchester United as well, you know, it puts him in the shop window. There's obviously the option to buy a £40 million for Villa if it goes well and Manchester United decide to sell him. They've got a huge chunk of his wages off the book as well. I think it's probably one of those rare moves that kind of ticks the box for everyone.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because you said it's good for both Villa and Marcus Rashford and obviously Manchester United. But my question is Birmingham far enough? You know, maybe if he had gone to Barcelona, there's a different media attention, which is not always the best either, but it's a chance to really reshape himself. It's a big brand. Some people might see this as a bit of a fall off for Marcus Rashford, who, as you said, Dan, is synonymous with Manchester United, and it's kind of like he's been offloaded. And 2 years ago, if we had said to you Marcus Rashford is going to be available for £40 million, we would have all laughed because he was playing like £100 million player. Are you sure this is good for Marcus Rashford?
Yeah, I think so, because he's coming into a club where the manager is a shaper and moulder of players. There's very few players, if any, that haven't improved at Villa under Unai Emery. And I think the crucial thing here is that if you listen to Marcus Rashford's interview with Villa's in-house media earlier on today, he wanted to pick the club that he felt was the best fit for him. And he thinks that Villa and this manager are the best fit for him. I think Emery will get the best out of him. I think it's going to be interesting to see where he plays. Villa have got a lot of attacking talent. Obviously, everyone knows what Ollie Watkins can do. Morgan Rogers has been sensational this season. Jacob Ramsey, John McGinn, Leon Bailey, off form at the moment, but was really good last season. So he comes into a lot of traffic. But he wouldn't be coming to Villa if he didn't think he was going to play. And it was Unai Emery specifically that pushed for this signing. Nothing happens without Unai Emery pushing for it.
And I have to interrupt very quickly. I'm saying, yes, Unai Emery is a good moulder, but how many managers have been good moulders? How many good managers has Marcus played under? Amorim isn't the first one to say that things needed to change. So are we sure that we're kind of like picking and choosing when it comes to Marcus?
I would say that the managers there, they're all in the same place, aren't they? It's still the same environment. Manchester United have underachieved for a long, long time now. It's that fresh environment coupled with a manager like Unai Emery, who is a proven entity at revitalising careers. He's done it in Spain as well. And just having that fresh voice, that fresh environment, fresh teammates, I'm really, really confident that Marcus Rashford will be good for Villa. And if he's not, at the end of the day, he goes back to Manchester United. Villa don't have to buy him. But I'm hopeful that we'll get to the end of May and Villa are there and they want to buy him because he's done well.
Dan, if I can just get your reaction as well to an outgoing in John Duran. He'd had a fantastic start to the season with Aston Villa, but it felt like in the end, the player's desire to go to Saudi Arabia and the money on offer was just too good to turn down.
Yeah, I spoke to someone who's close to things at Villa a couple of days ago, and the simple message is that John Duran doesn't really care about where he plays football and the competition that he's playing in. John Duran cares about money. And I think inevitably in the next few windows, John Duran was going to go anyway. I think he wasn't doing Ollie Watkins any favours, having him breathing down his neck. I think Ollie Watkins thrives when he knows he's the main man and going to start every week. It wasn't sustainable what Villa were doing, having two genuine top-class strikers. Not many clubs have two top-class strikers. In fact, not many clubs have one top-class striker at the moment. We've all seen what the market is like for centre-forwards. So I think it's a good thing for Villa to get the fee they got as well, the fee they've extracted. The body of work from Duran isn't massive. There's no guarantees that he's going to go on and be one of the best strikers in Europe. So I think for Villa to have taken that money, I think they're better set now with the attacking options that they've got, because they've got a lot of multifunctional players who can play with Watkins and some that can cover him when he's not there as well. So I think Villa will be a much better place without John Duran, because quite simply he's a firework waiting to go off both on and off the pitch.
Interesting, and I think that's why perhaps Villa were willing to also let him go during the summer. They've certainly got good money, but what I find quite intriguing about the situation, Dan, is 77 million euros plus add-ons, taking the total package to somewhere in the region of 90 million euros for John Duran. Then they go and loan Marcus Rashford. Some of that maybe was on the player not wanting the permanence just yet to see how it works out. They bring in Marco Asensio as well from PSG on loan. The talk around Axel Disasi before the deal was off was also about a loan as well. And we didn't see Villa put big money down to try and sign Joao Felix. So the natural assumption maybe from some fans was you've got that 77 million euros plus add-ons, spend some of it on permanent signings. Do you sense the right targets were just not available? Or is this actually down to the fact that Aston Villa might have some PSR concerns? So maybe a large portion of that Duran fee might actually be going to help them balance the books.
I think it's probably a bit of everything that you've just said there. I think there's a lot of different spheres going on with Villa at the moment. I think on the face of it, this window, if you look purely at who they've sold and who they've bought in, Duran's gone, Rashford's come in, Philogene, who wasn't really doing anything for us, has gone, and Marlon's come in, and Emi Buendia, who played limited minutes, is gone, and Asensio's coming in. So I think you'd agree that probably most of those areas are upgraded with players that are going to impact the first team for the rest of the season. I can see that people would look at it as being a little bit short term. I get that with a couple of loans, but if they go well, Villa will make those moves permanent. The thing I can't stress enough is that nothing happens without Unai Emery being completely happy. He doesn't bring players into the club that he doesn't think are upgrades on what's already there and players that aren't going to improve Villa. So I think that's maybe why you've seen a couple of loans rather than the permanent moves. And then Villa will look again in the summer where now they've made these sales, the Diaby sale to Saudi Arabia last summer as well. Villa should have a little bit more wiggle room and a bit more flexibility. The Champions League income from the last 12 months as well. I think you'll see Villa, a lot more permanent activity from Villa in the summer. I think they wanted to play it a bit safer in January, and I think that's what they've done.
Last one from me, Dan. Ollie Watkins, you spoke about it wasn't sustainable having two top-class forwards / strikers at the club. I mean, now you've got Marcus Rashford in. Surely there might be a space for him to move on to Arsenal, no?
No, I think you need to wake up, Joel. I think you're still dreaming. There's absolutely no chance, especially at this stage, that Ollie Watkins goes to Arsenal. There was obviously that clip put out last week of him talking about being an Arsenal fan and his dream to play there one day, but that clip was when he was at Brentford playing in the Championship. You know, lots changed in Ollie Watkins' career and life since that video was shot. So I've no worries about Ollie Watkins going anywhere. He's the main man again at Villa now. He's not going to go to Arsenal, especially at this stage.
One thing doesn't change though, Dan. He's still an Arsenal fan. That's all I'm saying.
Of course. But you're an Arsenal fan, Joel. You're not going to be playing for Arsenal either, so I'm not too worried. Honestly, Ollie Watkins is the main man at Villa again now. He's happy. He said he's happy. He's happy to stay. He's got a great relationship with Emery. Ollie Watkins won't go. No chance.
We'll see. Anyway, listen, Dan, I want to say thank you very much for coming on. You've been absolutely brilliant. And please, let's stay in touch. And for those watching, please make sure that you follow Dan on X at Dan Bardell to keep us up to date with his reporting. And Dan, you can go. And I think it's time for our next chat, isn't it, Ben?
It is. Just before we go to Fabrizio, a little bit of breaking news for you once again. I can tell you Jeffrey Schlupp is going to be joining Celtic from Crystal Palace. There is a verbal agreement in place between the clubs, and the player has agreed personal terms. And a little earlier, I reported, if you're following my feed, that Leicester City and Wolves were in conversations about a possible swap deal between Connor Cody and Craig Dawson, and that would obviously see the possibility of Cody returning to Wolves. I'm now getting wind that despite an appetite from Wolves, that deal has been turned down by Leicester City. As I reported earlier, it was always seen as relatively unlikely and the talks were early, but I can now confirm that swap deal, or two separate deals between Cody and Dawson, Leicester and Wolves, is off.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that, Ben. I know you're the man with the breaking news. But also, I think it's time for us to move on to Mr. Fabrizio Romano. The man we all want to hear from, Mr. Fabrizio Romano. How you doing? You okay?
All good, my friend. All good. Crazy hours.
I know today you're on your phone nonstop, like you just said, crazy hours. So we're going to get straight into it, all right? So we want to know the big story of the day. Matthias Tell chose Spurs after turning them down a few days ago. Can you please let us know, Fab, what changed?
The formula of the deal. So Matis didn't want to leave on a permanent transfer. And at the beginning of last week, there was an agreement between Bayern and Tottenham on a permanent transfer. It was a loan with obligation, so like a permanent transfer with Matis Tell saying no to that proposal, despite Daniel Levy flying to Munich, despite Ange Postecoglou calling the player. Then Bayern started to open doors also for a loan deal, because was the player to push to go on loan, to play on regular basis for the second half of the season. And so today, green light to a loan move, and Matis Tell decided to accept Tottenham, also because all the other clubs were also offering this opportunity, Man United and all the others. But Matis Tell had the feeling that at Tottenham he can play, he can have the opportunity to be an important player every single week, and so that's why he said yes. He's in London right now having his medical, and then he will become a new Spurs player. There is no buy option, no buy obligation, so it's a straight loan.
That sounds like there's a lot going on over there. I want to ask as well, still sticking with Spurs, Axel Disasi. It felt like they ruled him out in the morning. Can we get an update on that news, please, Fab?
I'm not sure they got out of this story. I never heard this. I think there was kind of typical headline day to have this kind of stories, but it really depends on what the player wants to do. I think that if Axel Disasi in the next hours decides to call and say, okay, I'm coming to Tottenham, they are still keen on making the deal happen. But at the moment, this is not happening because Axel Disasi agreed on terms with Aston Villa, wanted to go to Aston Villa, Champions League football, direct call with Unai Emery. So he wanted to be a Villa player, but Chelsea are not giving players to Aston Villa on loan. So that's the clear message from Chelsea. They wanted Joe Felix. Chelsea said big, important loan fee or nothing. Same for Disasi. So there is completely different terms compared to what Chelsea are offering to other clubs for their players because they are direct competitors for a Champions League spot. And so at the moment, there is no green light to this move from the player. I think there is a chance Disasi stays at Chelsea or maybe some other club could appear in the final hours of the window.
Fabrizio, you mentioned Joao Felix this morning when we spoke on Market Madness. It was a maybe. Now his move to Milan is a definite. Give us the details.
Yeah, he's been able to complete this agreement with Chelsea with terms that are quite important to be a loan because it's going to be more than £5 million. We know Chelsea were loaning out some players in this January window, for example, Renato Vega and others, so always getting a big loan fee, and that's the case also for Joe Felix. So the total package is worth more than £5 million. Milan will cover part of his salary, so everything is okay between parties. Joe Felix will be in Milano tonight around 10 to complete his medical and then formally sign his Milan contract, but everything is already okay also between the two clubs. There is no buy option also in this case, so formally Joe Felix at the end of the season will return to Chelsea and assess all the possibilities. But Milan are very happy. They needed a creative player like him. Sergio Conceição, Portuguese manager, made the difference to make it happen, calling the player and pushing for this possibility. And so we can consider Joe Felix as a new signing for Milan. And I think this also confirms what we said earlier about Christopher Nkunku staying at Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Chelsea have done some late business as far as an incoming is concerned. A young midfielder by the name of Matis Amaju. You mentioned his name, I think, about 10 days ago. And it feels like at the time we're live, that one is now close.
Yeah, it's very close. It's just about the final details. From what I'm hearing, the agents are now traveling while we are here live to London to sort all the final details of the contract. So everything will be done, I think, later tonight after the game, maybe. But everything is already okay in terms of verbal agreement between clubs. It's something around 15 million euros with the don'ts included. Now discussing with the player who already said yes to Chelsea, obviously, and now discussing the details of the contract. But I think this one will get done very soon. The player is excited. Chelsea believe he's a very good talent. They were trying for Nico Riley at Manchester City, but as we said after the Cole Palmer story 1.5 years ago, Chelsea know that Man City are now not conceding any permanent transfer without a buyback clause or maybe matching rights. City had no intention to accept that proposal, and so Amogu will be the new midfielder for Chelsea. At the beginning, the plan was to send him to Strasbourg 10-15 days ago when they started the conversation, but now he's going to be the cover for Enzo, Lavia and Caicedo.
That's good stuff. And speaking about Man City as well, they are set to sign Nico Gonzalez. Have they triggered the release clause or got a different deal?
No, they didn't trigger the release clause. It's similar to what happened 2 years ago with Enzo Fernandez and Benfica. So with Portuguese clubs, usually it's like this. Basically, they pay the value of the release clause, 60 million euros, as Porto wanted. They've been very clear on that, despite City starting at 45 million. So then in the morning, ready to offer around 50. Porto always said close or nothing. So City decided to go for it, approved by all parties involved in the Manchester City board and also Guardiola believing they need this kind of player. But basically, they pay 60 million euros in several years. So on payment terms, there was private agreement with Porto. The player accepted a 5.5-year contract, so everything is okay between all parties. Also, in this case, medical ongoing in Portugal for Nico. Then he will travel with his agent, Jorge Mendes, same agent as Joe Felix. Very busy today, and he will complete his move to Manchester City.
Okay, and this one's very important for me, Fab. It's a close one to my heart. Arsenal, what is going on over there? Why did we not move for him or a striker? Are we going to move for a striker? What's going on?
Look, at the moment, still no guarantee. I'm sure that things are going on behind the scenes because there are many contacts with agents, calls. So Arsenal are still trying to find the right opportunity. Let's see if they will be able to make it happen. Otherwise, also to share something positive with Arsenal fans. For sure, in the summer, something important, but really important, will happen in that position. So let's see what happens last minute today. But in general, the focus is on getting something really big in the summer transfer window. Šeško for sure is on the list. Alexander Isak is not going to be easy with Newcastle, but he's another player they love at Arsenal. So I see Arsenal doing really big and massive in the summer in terms of striker. Now let's see if they can do something last minute. What I heard on Matistel is that they considered this possibility, they called, but there were several reasons. So one is that Matistel wanted to have the guarantee to play, I can't say all the games, but the majority of the games till the end of the season. And obviously Arsenal can't guarantee that with Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka then returning, maybe doing great. So that's why Arsenal couldn't guarantee that. And also I think Arsenal are looking for a more kind of traditional number 9 rather than a fast player like Matistel who can also play on the wing. They are looking for a proper number 9, and so probably Matistel is a fantastic player, but not exactly what they needed.
Just a quick word, Fabrizio, on Wolves. We spoke in the earlier show about incomings, but there's a big outgoing in Mario Lemina, who did want, when the Saudi window was open, a move to Al Shabab. It didn't come off. Where's he going to now?
He's going to Galatasaray, Ben, as you shared, and it's confirmed because they were looking for a midfielder after signing Alvaro Morata. Was always going to be busy for Galatasaray in these final days. They've been trying for several players in the midfield, calling English clubs, Italian clubs, and then this opportunity with Mario Lemina, who was very close to joining Al Shabab, as you said. Then the deal collapsed, and now Galatasaray are closing in on this move, £2.5 million. Yes, to move again. Morata is really involved. He's a player who loves to call his future teammates to share about the excitement, the project, and that's what happened from what I'm hearing. So he's going to Galatasaray, and for Wolves, is more profit. As we said also earlier, they're very happy with what we've been doing in this window, especially with the new contract of Cunha, and now Lemina is leaving the club.
Fab, Palace, Ben Chilwell, is it done? And also, after that, I would like to know, what about Mark Guehi? Is he staying? What's happening?
So for Chilwell, it's done. Yes, everything is verbally agreed. We wait for the contracts to be signed, but he did his medical at Crystal Palace in the morning. Now he's on Chelsea and Palace to exchange all the documents and sign. It's a loan deal, of course. No buy option. It's a straight loan also in this case for Ben Chilwell. And the other question was about, I forgot.
Mark Guehi.
Yeah. That's also a good story because, as we said before earlier today, there was interest from Tottenham. There was also an important bid around 65-70 million pounds. It was not today, but 2-3 days ago, a secret bid made by Tottenham. But the intention of Crystal Palace is clear. The player is not leaving now. The player is not available on the market, so I don't expect any surprise in the final hours of the window. But I expect him to go in the summer. He has just 1 year left on his contract, so I see Mark Guehi leaving the club in the summer transfer window. Tottenham will be there. But remember that at the beginning of the window, also Chelsea were interested. He's always been in the list of the top clubs in England. So I think there will be a big battle to sign him in the summer window.
Good player, him, for real. Also, Manchester United. Are we going to be seeing more business happening with them this window?
Look, at the moment, nothing imminent, to be honest. I think Garnacho is staying, and so at the moment, Man United are not even desperate to bring in a new player. They tried for Matistel, they called for Leon Bailey, but Aston Villa didn't get Joe Felix, so at the moment, they still don't have green light on that one. Let's see what happens. Let's see if they have something maybe last minute after the injury with Lisandro Martinez. From what I heard, they are discussing internally some opportunities, but no guarantee of new signing, also because we know how with financial fair play, it's tough for Man United to do business. So if there is an opportunity, last minute could be, but not guaranteed.
And Fabrizio, just before I let you go, I'm going to play a quick fire round with you to find out how on earth you're able to break so many exclusives on deadline day, working a 24-hour day. So I'm going to give you two options and you're going to give us a secret insight into how you operate. So my first question is, do you use one phone or two phones?
One phone.
To stay awake, do you have a cold shower or a hot shower?
Always hot shower.
Tea or coffee throughout the day?
Coca-Cola.
Music or power nap in order to wind down or motivate yourself?
Always music, always music. Bossa Nova is not so motivating, but it's relaxing.
Joel, you've managed to mute yourself.
Oh, I'm
You were so
sorry.
engaged with Fabrizio Romano in the
I
last
was,
chat. You took a
you
little
know,
breather and you made yourself silent.
I know. I was actually congratulating you on those questions at the end towards Fabrizio. I really like them. We really get to see your personality and his as well.
Yeah, he likes the Coke. I'm more of a coffee man.
Really? No, it's true. I mean, honestly, keep it up, keep those questions flowing, because for me, I think the audience gets to see the real Ben Jacobs, and I'm not talking about Slim Shady. Okay, so next up we have a Gimme Sports senior transfer news correspondent, the man himself, Mr. Dean Jones. Can you please come into the building, Mr. Dean Jones? There you are.
Good
How
to
are
see
you
you,
doing,
Dean.
Dean?
How are we doing, guys? Good to see you both. Enjoyed that little chat there, Ben. That was good questions. Those things about Fabrizio that we always want to know, like how does he get through a day like this? So that was good.
Don't worry, there's similar questions coming for you, Dean, in just a moment. I might put you on the spot as well. Actually, just before we start, I want to break a little bit of news if I can, and that is sources at Manchester United confirming that their window is over. So Manchester United fans, if you're listening, that's it. You can go to bed now. No further incomings expected before tonight's deadline. I can tell you the United belief is that they went into the window with quite a sensible and financially disciplined approach to incomings and outcomings. And they've worked collaboratively, according to club sources, to bring in Patrick Dorgu, Aidan Heaven, Diego Leon on a pre-contract as well. All young players with high potential. And then, of course, Rashford and Antony have both been resolved as well. And that helps reduce the wage bill considerably. There is still a chance, as far as an outgoing is concerned, that Malacia goes to PSV. We'll keep an eye on that as well. But generally, Manchester United, my understanding is anyway, have gone into this window and they've not been prepared to be reckless or overpay for players. And I'm sure, Dean, you'll have a perspective on this as well. And now the summer planning begins. So no more incomings expected for Manchester United. And Dean, I'll throw it to you because I know that you're very knowledgeable about Manchester United. And then I know that Joel's got some other questions about various other clubs too. But how would you grade this window for Manchester United? Have they done enough to back their new manager?
I mean, I don't think they've had the capability to back the manager. I think that's been the biggest frustration here. Like, it's clear that they need to be signing players right now. We've just seen Rashford and Antony go out the door. We've seen Højlund and Xerxes on the bench. We've seen Kobbie Mainoo start as a false nine, and United needed a forward, and they haven't had the capability of actually doing it. So I think that's a huge frustration. One thing I've constantly reported on GiveMeSport throughout this month is that United's hands were kind of tied when it came to putting big finances into any deals. Man United do not like the idea of straight loan deals at the moment because they don't want to improve players that are then not going to be signing for them longer term. Like, the idea here is to build a project team for Ruben Amorim for the future. So straight loans just aren't ideal for them. And obviously Tell is an example of one that they had potential to go and do, but like the terms weren't there for them. So I do think this is a frustrating window for Man United, but they have to look at the bigger picture, and they're just not willing to panic buy, basically, I'd say. Like, in the past, I think Man United would have jumped into the market today somehow, but I find it intriguing and definitely a sign of the times that they're deciding not to do that.
You know, besides the news that you're providing, Dean, I want to say your hair looks extremely slicked back and in tune on transfer deadline day. But I want to say well done for that. You've done a great job. I do think it's about, I want to ask you, Arsenal, why are we so quiet? I mean, we've had the opportunities, maybe Isak, I'm sure he was available last summer. Now his price has just risen. Sesko, who we've been looking at maybe for the summer. Watkins for the summer. You tell me, why have we been so quiet? And is there going to be any movement on the names that I've just listed there?
I'd love to bring you good news, mate, but it's just not very likely. I mean, Arsenal were only ever going to sign somebody in this window that was top level. And by that, I'm talking like a player that was guaranteed to lift the level of the team, score important goals, make decisive impact in key moments, and improve their chances of winning trophies. And they just haven't been able to find somebody that obviously did that. Obviously, Tell is somebody that's been spoken about again in recent days. But again, it was a market opportunity. they'd been offered the chance. It was briefly discussed as far as I understand it, but it never really went that far. And I think part of that is that he's not an obvious natural goal scorer in this precise moment for Arsenal. And they couldn't have that reliability factor of bringing Tell in, playing him as a 9 and him scoring loads of goals. Like, if he was going to play, even at Tottenham, I think Tell's probably more likely to end up as a wide forward than he's going to be playing through the middle. I don't think really that was what Arsenal wanted for the here and now. And again, it goes back to what Man United were thinking in terms of taking in players and then improving them, and then they go back to their other team anyway. I think with Tell, there's a possibility he still wants to be at Bayern ideally anyway. So there's that complication. Even if you think about players like Evan Ferguson that have been linked with Arsenal loosely throughout this window, I would say, I personally don't think there was ever much scope for Evan Ferguson to go and play at Arsenal because he's not at that very, very top level yet. Like, he obviously has shown a great capability of scoring goals within the Premier League, but he's never done it in a high pressure situation as the ones that Arsenal are going to find themselves in the coming months. And obviously with ongoing fitness concerns, which has to be there given the amount of game time that he's had recently, Arsenal just wouldn't have gone for a deal like that. So now you're looking at it thinking, right, Ollie Watkins, Sesko, Isak, like that is a different level of signing, I think, compared to getting in a Tell or an Evan Ferguson.
But Dean, have you seen our striker options at the current moment? You're going on about he's not at the level. We just need someone. Arsenal might need to call me up soon. No?
The thing is, you just scored 5 goals against Man City and none of them were from corners. Like, so
yeah, but it's not every game though, is it? Have you seen the amount of chances we've missed as well, Dean? Come on, let's be honest.
Yeah, look, it's not me making this decision, but I do speak to people that are involved in like the reasonings that go in behind this. And Ollie Watkins, obviously, like that is going to lift the level of your team. And not only can Ollie Watkins play through the middle, we've also seen that Ollie Watkins can play on that left side and go through that channel. So I think that was a really interesting one. It wasn't a proper offer, like it was an inquiry over like 40, 45 million. And we knew it was going to be an advance of 60 million to get that deal done. So not sure what the capabilities of it were anyway. And I'd be interested to know from you as an Arsenal fan, because if Ollie Watkins had come through the door, that would then limit the expectation on a Sesko or an Alex Isak coming in the next window. So would you have rather had Watkins come in now, or would you rather wait for a Sesko or an Isak?
Well, I would have Ollie Watkins now because that's Arsenal's problem. We've been waiting, for the next season and the next season. I mean, I've had Patrice Evra call us Netflix FC because we're just waiting for the new season to start. As far as I'm concerned, we're in a title race now. There is no guarantee that you're going to be in a title race next season, especially with Chelsea improving. City will be right back where they should be. Liverpool are looking great. Goodness gracious, even Nottingham Forest could be there next season. We don't know. So I think we need to focus on the now. And on top of that, you're talking about Isak and Sesko in the summer. Who's to say whether we're going to get them? Dean, I think that's the problem. We're thinking too much about the future. But I do want to talk about Newcastle, sticking with Newcastle. Are they not expected to replace Miguel Almiroyd or Lloyd Kelly?
I mean, a wide player at Newcastle is something that's been on the agenda since the last transfer window, and I was expecting something to happen in that sense. I checked with someone this morning about what to foresee for Newcastle today, and he was like, it's mainly going to be about exits. Obviously, there was the Lloyd Kelly one already on the table. Kieran Trippier, obviously, also being linked with a transfer out of Newcastle at the moment. And it's those exits that are really taking up most of the talk time at the moment around Newcastle. I mean, they've got a good side there that they believe can make the top 4 or 5 with the crop of players they've already got. Eddie Howe's not going to sign somebody just for the sake of it right now and upset the players that he's already got in there who have been tried and tested and also trusted, which is really important under Eddie Howe. He's done really well to get Newcastle back into this situation because there was a lot of pressure on them to make the Champions League this season. And there's a possibility that they can do it. And obviously, if they can make the Champions League, they've got a much better chance of keeping Alex Isak at the club, which is what they're striving for. Also, there's some doubts long-term about whether they can keep Bruno Guimaraes because Man City are probably going to make a push to sign him in the summer. And yeah, they don't want to lose him either. So at the moment, for Newcastle, I think it's more about keeping the integral parts of their squad together, making this push together to try to make the Champions League. And then if they make it, then they can go really big in the summer.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, if Newcastle get Champions League, they'll be able to attract a much higher caliber of players. So it feels like they're in a sort of limbo window where if they qualify for the Champions League, both financially and in football terms, the project can be very different compared to if they miss out on Champions League football. And then, of course, some of their big stars are definitely going to have question marks above their heads. Let's talk about West Ham as well, Dean. I think they've had a very impressive deadline day, bringing Evan Ferguson on loan. Smart and relatively risk-free decision to have James Ward-Prowse back from Nottingham Forest as well. I know they tried twice for Daniel Cummings, the young Celtic striker, and were unable to reach a deal. Tell us your sense of whether West Ham have found the right kind of profiles for Graham Potter, and if there's been any missed opportunities that might surprise us in the last few hours, or whether most of their future business now is all going to be about the summer.
Yeah, look, they've had plenty of opportunities. There's no doubt about that. And one of the things that we know about West Ham is that they don't just go for one target at a time. They kind of cast the net wide, and then they'll maybe talk to 3-4 players at the same time sometimes to see which avenue is best for them to explore. And in this case, that's certainly happened. As many as 15 players have been looked at in terms of the forward positions for West Ham in the last few weeks. But Evan Ferguson was always right up there as like the one they would really like to wait for. So they've had other players in the background, like on hold, if you like Silva at RB Leipzig, kind of waiting for the last 2 days of the deadline to see whether they could go ahead with a move like that. In the end, they were able to say to him, look, we're not going to pushing ahead with you because we've got Evan Ferguson, and that is the one that they really wanted. I think it's a good profile fit. West Ham have a disastrous record with signing number 9s of this type, and you can see the struggles that they've had. The fact they've had to, just keep turning to Michail Antonio season after season to fill that gap, even when they've been signing other players. Obviously, even without Antonio now, they're struggling even further. It's been a really difficult time for them. So I think that Evan Ferguson is a much better fit for Ferguson as well, I think, to go to West Ham than to go to a really big club where he's going to struggle to get game time, because he's going to get matches here. Cummings, I do think, is still on the agenda. I don't think they've given up on that. Might be they have to give up for it for this window. But I do still think that there's some leeway for the Cummings deal to open up for the summer. And there's always the capability of players leaving West Ham. I know there's Luis Guillem is in talks at the moment. I believe it's with Porto to leave. So that's an opportunity that might come about. I don't think West Ham would stand in his way if that one was to come about. But yeah, it's been interesting. I think James Ward-Prowse coming back is really key. They weren't in a situation where they could just recall him from his loan. I think that some of the reports around it were like West Ham have recalled him. That was never going to be possible. Like Nottingham Forest had to agree to that and almost instigate it, really. And so West Ham had been quite patient about waiting for that. But Potter had made it clear that Ward-Prowse would be a good fit for what he was looking for. And that solves a lot of problems, I think, for what West Ham need right now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's very Graham Potter driven in terms of the profile. And of course, at the time we're live, we have Chelsea who are hosting West Ham. So interesting to see how they fare. Graham Potter returning to Stamford Bridge. I just want to touch on Everton as well. No real surprise, Dean, is it, that they've had a quiet window due to the financial constraints? It looks like Charlie Alcaraz is one of the big deals that they have been able to get over the line. And Amanda Broja, a word on him as well. Is the expectation, barring any twists, that that loan will remain as opposed to Chelsea recalling him?
Yeah, well, it seems like Broja, when he got his last injury, it was kind of doom and gloom, and you thought that might be the end of that. But it seems like he might be able to make a return sooner than they'd initially expected. So that could be good news for Broja, who certainly is due some good luck. But Alcaraz to Everton is something that's very interesting. If you remember him from when he went to Southampton, he was barely able to make a mark there. It certainly didn't work out in the way that people would have hoped and expected around Southampton, because he was an exciting signing that just didn't turn out very well. But at Everton, perhaps he gets the chance to make up for lost time. I was looking into an hour or so ago whether Everton might have other signings on the agenda. I'm not going to completely rule it out because I didn't get the feeling that they'd totally given up. But one thing I was told is that in signing Alcaraz, they've got somebody who can play midfield, but can also play as an attacking threat too. So it kind of ticked 2 boxes for them. And that's why they consider this to be a really good signing.
I want to focus on the bottom 3 clubs, Southampton, Ipswich and Leicester. Are any of them trying to buy their way out of trouble?
I mean, Ipswich have made a move for a goalkeeper from West Brom, so there's potential there that they're just trying something new to give themselves some hope. But I mean, I think Southampton, their fate is predetermined at this point. It's interesting that they've held off on Tyler Dibbling for now. I was definitely interested in him from Tottenham, that they've managed to kind of steer away for now, I would say, because largely the fact that they wanted a big fee for him. Tottenham, I don't think will give up on trying to get Dibbling, but there'll be other clubs certainly looking at him too. But in terms of incomings, I don't think we're in a situation where anyone in that bottom 3 is making a significant signing that quite obviously gives them a better chance of staying up. It's going to be a lot about unity and togetherness and belief and building on any hopes that they might have had already so far this season. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And it's certainly going to be a test of the managerial credentials here rather than what they do in the transfer market.
No, that's thank you for that, Ben. You know what, you felt very strongly about the Guehi rejection today. I don't know if you've got any more news on that or yourself, Dean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just interested to hear Dean's thoughts, really, because we learned, didn't we, Dean, in the last sort of 48 hours or so, Tottenham have placed an offer in the region of 70 million, which basically is Palace's valuation, and still no sale. Do you sense this is just because Chalobah's recalled, no deal on the table, and will Spurs be back in the summer? My information is that Chelsea will, and that the whole Chilwell to Palace, Chalobah to Chelsea recall has shown once again that, contrary to reports that suggest the clubs don't really get on over the whole Michael Olise fallout, actually they are prepared to do business. So we might well see Chelsea, Newcastle and Tottenham all coming in for Mark Guehi in the summer.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ben. I mean, I think Tottenham have tried their luck here, and I think that the fact that they've tried to go through the back door almost and do this on the quiet is very interesting. I had some skepticism when I first saw that they'd gone in for him. I mean, I'd heard nothing about it. I mean, Tottenham, I have reasonable contacts at, and hear quite a fair amount of stuff that comes out. But a new offer for Guehi isn't something that I'd heard before all this came out. And it kind of, at first, I was like, is this a bit like West Ham going for John Duran? Is it a bit like, is this just to placate people and show that they're trying to do something? But actually, I think it was more than that. I think Tottenham sensed an opportunity to kind of jump the queue on Mark Guehi, because they know, as you say, that other clubs, possibly bigger clubs right now, are going to try to sign Mark Guehi in the summer. And that if they made an offer that was around the asking price, perhaps they could actually get him. If they had everything in place, then maybe they could do it. Now, obviously, they haven't managed to do that. But I think they probably sensed that this was their big chance to go and do it, because the likelihood is that Mark Guehi would choose to go to Chelsea. It's something that I've heard for quite a long time now. And I think that probably will still be the case, that if Guehi leaves Crystal Palace at the end of this season, then that's where he ends up. But I did find it interesting that that's where Tottenham looked to turn. Obviously, they've looked at Tomori. They've got Danso. There's still a small chance that they go for Disasi still. But it's been a month of knockbacks, hadn't it? We've seen they were in for Dorgu and they were in for Kusanov. Right at the start of this window, I did like a transfer guide for GiveMeSport. And when I was speaking to people, those were 2 names were like serious targets for Tottenham. Obviously, Dorgu's ended up going to Man United. Kusanov ended up going to Man City. Then they turned to Kolo Muani as an attacking threat. They thought they might get him, but he ended up at Juventus. Then they went for Tell. They thought they'd missed out on Tell, but he's actually done a U-turn. So they've gone for Guehi, I think, to try and make up for some of their misses in this window. But what I do find interesting is that actually, when you look at it now, Tottenham's window doesn't look too bad. I mean, they came into January primarily looking for a defender. That was the priority. A goalkeeper as backup, if you like, for Vicario. And also a winger / centre forward that could be alternated. And they've ended it with Kinski. They've got a centre back in now, and they're getting Tell in as somebody who could play through the middle or go wide. So while Daniel Levy and Lange have had, a fair amount of stick, and probably deservedly so at times, given what they've actually tried to do, they might come out of it okay. And at the very least, they've given Ange Postecoglou an opportunity now to actually do something in the second half of the season. Ange has got some relief now around his team selection, and that he's not scrambling around to try and pick an 11 that is worthy of playing in the high-level, high-pressured matches that are coming up for them. Obviously, they're trying to make it through to a Carabao Cup final. They're in the Europa League. They've got to turn around their league position. So I'd say that Tottenham have done a reasonably good job, actually, of rescuing their window at the 11th hour.
Dean, I just have to say, mate, yes, they've got transfers in, but he's going to be getting sacked in a few weeks, so it's all a waste of time, really, isn't it?
I don't think he will, though. This is the thing. They're trying to avoid that situation,
Yes,
they're trying.
He will. He's going to get knocked out of the cups. We all know what's going to happen. It's written on the walls, man. It's all good. But anyway, listen, I want to say, your hair looks great. I've told you again, and I think
you like my hair better than my transfer news by the sound of it.
I was going to say, there's a lot of mentions of the hair. All right, listen. Before we let you go, Dean, just because you mentioned it, I'm going to give you a quick fire round as well. But there is a twist, Joel Beya. I'm going to let you play as well. Okay. So these are either all questions to wrap up. And we will start with this. Obviously, in the context of Dean, it's more breaking stories. But Joel, you can comment just in general lifestyle. WhatsApp message or phone call?
WhatsApp message.
WhatsApp message all day long. All day long.
Absolutely.
What about WhatsApp message or WhatsApp voice message?
I mean, I still prefer it.
You lot love the long voice notes, mate. Just message me. Tell me what you want me to do. That's it. Press send.
Yeah, I mean, the voice note messages have definitely been on the rise when you're getting information. It's just like sometimes I wish someone would just type it out so I haven't got to listen to the whole thing and I can just quickly browse it and know what I'm getting.
Ben loves a voice note message, mate.
I'm not playing this game. I'm asking the questions. I do not have to commit to how I do or don't communicate. All right, next question. The smart casuals are at the top as you're viewing this, and the slightly more casual chic is at the bottom. So the question is this. You're working like we are from home or the office. Are you, Dean, first, hoodie or shirt?
I think you've got the answer to that already. Yeah, I'll always go for hoodie. Unless I'm told to dress otherwise, I'll usually have a hoodie on.
Joel, man, I know you're wearing a shirt now, but do you prefer the smart or the casual?
I probably go for the smart, just because you got to remember I create content. If I come online and I'm wearing hoodies, they go, "Oh, you're just content creator." So you try to button it up sometimes because I know Dean and Ben are going to be there today, innit? So shirt.
I don't get as much respect by turning up in a hoodie. To be fair, I should have put a shirt on today.
No, but that's your thing, though, Dean.
No, you're looking good. I mean, Joel's given you about 400 hair compliments, so he obviously thinks that your look is perfect. Right, it's deadline day. How do we keep going? Tea or coffee?
Oh, I started on tea. I have 2 cups of tea and then it turns to coffee for the rest of the day.
For me, neither.
So what do you drink instead?
Water.
Oh, Mr. Professional. Best for the voice.
Wow.
There you go. Yeah, no, I'd rather water. Yeah.
All right, 2 final ones then. So you need a break from the madness. Do you, 1, go for a walk, or 2, have an afternoon nap?
Usually a walk. Usually I do go for the walk. Yeah.
I'll probably say nap. I love a nap. Like when I can get it in anyway. I'm not saying I just sleep around, but when it's time to nap, I take it very seriously. So nap.
Yeah, my problem with the nap, especially on deadline day, would be that I might miss something that I should have got. Whereas some days maybe the nap's an option, but today it definitely is not.
Yeah, if I take a nap, then I'll wake up in a cold sweat. I've missed something, or I'll dream a transfer that never happened, and then I'll wake up and I'll be all confused by it. I remember Fabrizio, actually, when Chelsea signed Cole Palmer about a week before, he had a random dream that a blonde winger was coming to Chelsea, and then Cole Palmer joined. So maybe the dreams do give us a little bit of a clue. Right, final question, and then we'll obviously wrap up a lot of the breaking news. You've not missed anything, by the way, if you're watching the show live. We've had our first lull in deadline day. But my final question to both of you, it's a little bit controversial, I know. If you've got a little bit of breaking news, of course, the first place it goes is GMS. But after that, you're going to put it on your own socials. What do you post on first? X, Instagram, or TikTok?
I'm not a big fan of any of them, as you can probably tell from my socials, but it would have to be X, just because that's where people go for that, really, isn't it? I mean, I'd rather come away from that and do it all on Instagram, because it's often a bit friendlier, but yeah, X is the place for, like, it's become the go-to place basically for deadline day, hasn't it?
For me, I'll probably say Instagram. That's just where I deal with a lot of visuals and content creation, so it has to be Instagram for me.
Yeah,
great stuff. Well, that was fascinating. So now we know a bit more about each other. We know that Dean's got the best hair from the GMS crew. I'm disappointed nobody mentioned my shirt. It's the first time I've dressed up, and nobody has given me any compliment in two live shows.
You look great, man. I made a compliment about your beard. You shaved it off, and I said, "Oh wow!" a couple of days ago.
That's not necessarily a compliment. That's just saying something factual, that you had a beard and it's gone. You never said that it was better clean shaven.
Mate, I think we're going down another conversation here. All right,
we'll speak off air, Joel Beya.
For sure. But listen, thank you so much, Dean, for joining us. You can actually follow Dean on his preferred platform, which is X, on @DeanJonesSoccer. It's transfer deadline day. This is Market Madness on GiveMeSport. Ben, it's a busy day, man. And I know that your phone is ringing just as much as everybody else's phone is ringing. Is there any more updates that you have for me? What's going on across the globe, man? We've spoken a lot about the Premier League. Is there anything internationally that I need to know as well?
Yeah, there's a few things. Just to reiterate, Mario Lemina is going off to Galatasaray. The fee is 2.5 million. That was a bit of breaking news from earlier. Christopher Nkunku expected to stay at Chelsea. He's in the matchday squad. Joao Felix is off to Milan. That loan deal is being finalised. So Chelsea very busy as far as outgoings are concerned. Matis Amaju has also come in as well. And the understanding is that that's a 15 million euros fee, and it's for Chelsea rather than Strasbourg. And he's a very dynamic midfielder. He can play 6, he can play 8. And I think that's what Chelsea need at the moment, a versatile, defensive-minded midfielder that can also get box-to-box, especially with Romy Alavia currently out. So Chelsea will be delighted to have got that one over the line. They tried for Nico O'Reilly at Man City, but City was saying there has to be a buyback. And in the absence of one, there was no deal on the table there. So Chelsea have moved on. As I said earlier, Manchester United's window is over. Big story of the day is Tottenham and Matis Tell, who is set to join on a loan. He's landed in London. The medical is ongoing. That one might, I don't want to scare Spurs fans, but it could need the deal sheet after 11 o'clock, but I think everyone's relatively confident that that one can get over the line. And Nico Gonzalez has done his Man City medical, and now the parties are finalising that deal. New midfielder for Man City from Porto for around about 60 million euros, and that will be a slightly different payment schedule to what City would have had if they had to trigger the release clause, and that's another massive story. All quiet on the Arsenal front as well, and the same for Newcastle United. Jeffrey Schlupp, as I said before, is undergoing a medical in London before going north of the border and joining Celtic. So that's one to watch out for. Carney Chukwuemeka to Dortmund is done. So is Ben Chilwell to Crystal Palace. So we're getting into that territory now of announced deals. Tell will be official, like I say, this evening. And that's something for Spurs fans to celebrate. And just a final couple of lines that are reaching me in the last 5 minutes. The first is just about Manchester United. Lots of Manchester United fans are saying to me, why, if Tell was available on loan and the player was interested, did Manchester United just not match the Spurs terms? And the answer is the 5 million loan fee, which Manchester United were not prepared to pay. So that deal didn't not get done because of Tell choosing necessarily Spurs above Manchester United. It was derailed by the price of the loan, and Tottenham were obviously prepared to pay it, and Manchester United were not. And that is why incomings are done as far as Manchester United are concerned. And then a reminder that we are also going to have other windows still open beyond just now. So the Turkish window is the last thing I just want to touch upon, because there is a real chance that Galatasaray make a formal offer in the region of 3 to 5 million euros for Kieran Trippier. Now, Eddie Howe wants to keep the player. That window is open until the 11th, and Trippier, I'm told, is open to the move. So it'll be interesting to see whether Newcastle sanction that. But watch out after today, because Galatasaray are going to be pushing for Newcastle's Kieran Trippier.
Oh my goodness. It's funny because I said that Kieran Trippier was the best Premier League right back ahead of Gary Neville, probably around a year ago, or just over a year ago. And I'll be honest with you, we haven't seen the high level performances since I said that. So maybe I'm bad luck, but I do hope that he goes away there and does a good job. Can I ask, Ben, has it been easy or hard for you this transfer window? I know they're all difficult, but if you was to rate them out of 1 to 10, I mean, look, the reality is you're 10 being the hardest, 1 being the easiest, because you're getting more known with every window. You're doing amazing work with GiveMeSport. I see you on the news. You know, you're everywhere. You're tapped in with all the top journalists. Is it getting easier or harder? Please rate 1 to 10.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you. We don't need to have that little heart after the call anymore, because that was a very genuine compliment, and I appreciate it. And back at you, we're delighted to have you fronting this show. And of course, Market Madness isn't just a deadline day thing. If you're new to this, it's every single week, most likely on a Wednesday, but we'll confirm week on week when the timings are. But yeah, this window has been really exciting, and I think you want a little bit of drama, a little bit of madness, hence why we're called Market Madness. What I would say is that last January was easy because nothing happened. This January has been quite hard because not only has everything happened, but there's sort of U-turns everywhere, like Tell saying no to Spurs, joining Spurs, Axel Disasi saying no to Spurs, but Tottenham is still working on that deal. So you never know, they might be able to get it over the line. So it has been quite an unpredictable window, and information can be right at one point and very quickly change. And I think this January has definitely had that element of surprise to it, which I know fans like. It's not the hardest window. I would rate it 8 out of 10 for difficulty and a 9 out of 10 for just pure entertainment. And I think this deadline day is a 10 out of 10 because just so much is happening. Sometimes it can be anticlimactic. Not the case when we are live at the moment, and still time for a few more twists. But the hardest one, Joel, I've ever covered was that crazy January window where Chelsea signed everybody under the sun, including Mykhailo Mudryk and Enzo Fernandez. And that was unbelievable. But there were so many plot lines, and Enzo Fernandez in particular happened, believe it or not, with 3 minutes to spare. So covering that one was incredibly difficult because, of course, we as journalists work hard outside of the window to develop sourcing. And you do that by essentially, when the window is shut, making people like you, building personal relationships, and then hopefully it pays off. But when you get to the end of a window and there's only a few minutes left, Chelsea are in the room with Enzo Fernandez, and I'm sure it'll be the case with various clubs now. So you have to know when to ask. You can't over push or bug. You're not in the room, obviously. So as time ticks down, it becomes quite stressful because it is a little bit of a waiting game, and you've got your phone out and you know you're going to get a tip off if you work hard. But you're also aware at that point, why do they want to speak to journalists? They're busy closing the deals. So the last hour of the window is quite tough and quite frantic. And this window and this deadline day has been box office.
You know, I never ever thought about that, you know, and it makes sense. They probably want to get their contract signed, so it's really difficult to for you guys in the last hour. But I just want to say again, Great job from yourself and the Give Me Sport team. You know, if you guys haven't seen the website, there's great information on there. And of course, at Give Me Sport on X, always filling us in with the new information. And if you're not an X person, you can check us out on YouTube right now. We are live and you can rewatch the show. And on top of that, Instagram always has the news coming. And yes, you know, you got myself, Joel Beya Ben Jacobs, and Olivia Bazaglo as well. We're going to be back with Market Madness. And anything else that we can leave the audience with before we sign off, Ben?
Just as I said before, I think Axel Disasi still feels live. Spurs haven't
Mhm.
given up yet. So don't go to bed, Spurs fans. I don't think we're in a position to say it will happen, but it might. So stay tuned to the Gimme Sport platforms, because some of these Premier League clubs, particularly Tottenham, are not done yet.
There you go. And that's what we want to hear. And we want to say thank you very much for joining us. This is Market Madness on Gimme Sport on Transfer Deadline. And we will be back soon. Peace.